Hello and welcome back to another F12 video. This is our C Sharp 101 and we're going to be talking, sorry, my name is Mike Hewitt.
I'm Jacob Rains.
And we're going to be talking about variables, and this is pretty much the beginning of the beginning.
Our previous video we talked about how to install the Visual Studio, which is the main tool that you would need to be able to do this. Assuming you've got that installed and you're ready to go, we're going to start explaining variables.
And we are here, if you want to go back and watch that video, but we are here, started a small project. We called it VS 101, and here we are. So variables, where do we begin?
So variables are core critical to everything that we do as programmers. Variables are how we store information while the program is running. So let's just go by example here. Let's make a variable. I'm thinking like int space I.
Okay, so int, yeah, a equals.
We don't even have to do the equals yet.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So just that right there is an instantiation of a variable, or not instantiation, a declaration of a variable, which is a lot of words. Really all it means is we've created a variable. Our variable's called A, and it has a type of int, which is short for integer.
Now, so what I think of, if you really basics, think of it as a bucket or a glass. So I have this glass. You're in a Christmas party. I write my name on my glass, right? That is my variable, and I could. It's a weird way of thinking it, but and then Jake has his own glass that he's written Jake on it, and that variable you can put things in it. It could be empty. It could have stuff in it. Does that help? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I think it does. And I would say no two glasses at the same party should have the same name written on them.
Right, because you don't want to share those germs.
You're right. Era COVID.
So the A there can be anything. I could call that Mike's glass. I could call that Mike's age, right? And it could have underscores. Is there anything it can't have? Or
yes. So it can have, obviously, underscores, letters. It can have numbers as long as the numbers aren't at the beginning.
Right.
And no other symbols that I can
And it cannot have that. So pretty much just uppercase, lowercase, and underscores is pretty much it. So
obviously no spaces. It's got to be
no spaces.
Yeah.
We can use whatever, it can be anything it wants.
But that is a friendly name that we can use to reference that value.
Yes.
And that value has to hold an integer.
And just like my cup holds liquid, my plate holds solids, this thing has to have a certain kind of type, and that's what int is. So let's go through. Do you want to go through some of the types here?
Let's just keep going with the integer one,
okay,
and then we'll kind of try it out here. So let's, on the next
line.
What
is an int?
Well, an int is, we go back to mathematics. It's a whole number between, positive and negative. No. An integer is a number that doesn't have a decimal place. That would be the easiest way of explaining it.
Yes.
So 1 is an integer, 2 is an integer, 1,000,000 is an integer, 0 is an integer, negative 12 is also an integer, 1.7 is not.
Right.
Dog is not.
Yes.
But yes, it's got to be a whole number. So let's, on this next line, let's just try putting Mike's age equals.
So now I can equal.
Oh, we got to give that out now.
Oh, sure. Oh, no.
43.
43. That's right. Thought it was 44 there for a second.
Now, the first thing you'll notice, every single time Mike types in a line, there's a semicolon at the end of the line.
Oh, yes, that's important.
If you want to think of this like each of these lines as being like a sentence, a semicolon is our period. That's how we end a phrase. Is that a good analogy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And most times what we do is each one of these will be on its own line, but we could easily put this here. It doesn't read very well, and you could just keep.
I think that would be called bad practice. But
yes,
yeah.
and you could just keep doing this. and this kind of says, okay, this one's done, but we don't do that because we don't want to upset other people. It's easier to read like this. So what we're saying is, okay, this is an int, right? We made this variable, and now we're stuffing something into that variable.
Now, down on what is now line 8, we've got our console.writeLine hello world, which is we talked about in the last video. That's going to send that text. We call it printing, but we're going to send that text to the application that we're writing to be displayed on the screen. Mike's already got it highlighted up. He knows where I'm going here. We can delete out that hello world.
Deleted.
And we can write in Mike's age.
Do you?
Just the variable.
Just the variable. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to put this right here.
And now we can run our new program.
Now if we run this, I'd love for it to, nope, it always put it over here. So now what it does is it spits out 43 on the screen. Now if I change this to 44, this will spit out 44.
So when it gets down to line 8 and it goes to do the console.writeLine, it sees Mike's age, and then it tells the computer when that's running the program, I need to go look up the value of Mike's age, and it's going to go referencing back to line 5 when we set the value. It knows what number to put in there.
Yep.
So the next thing is we can manipulate Mike's age.
So real quick, if you don't mind, if we could kind of take a side, a rabbit hole moment or whatever else.
When we're this close to the beginning, there are rabbit holes everywhere.
So another way, an easy way of, you can actually step through your code. Doing that in this little, first of all, these are line numbers. They are not important in the code, but it's important because I can tell him, hey, line 8, we've already said line 8, look at line 8 or look at line 5. It's a good reference to know where stuff is. But you can, over here, you can see this circle. I can hit this. Well, can I?
I don't think you can on a declaration line. It's particular about what it'll allow. It will allow it
there
on line 5.
So I put this little thing. So now when I run this again, you can see that it didn't spit 43 out. It stops here. And so what we can see is, if we look right here, Mike's age is 0.
Real quick, that red circle is I just want to throw out the vocabulary.
Yeah.
That red circle is called a breakpoint.
That's right, yep.
And you'll see there's a little yellow pointer that's stopped on line 5.
That's where we are.
Yeah, that's your execution point.
So the way code works is right now, without throwing multi-thread, which is way down the road, it's going to execute from top to bottom. So it's going to run this line first. It makes this, which, because we're not saying what it is, ints just automatically default as 0. And then here, we are going to set it to 44. But if you notice here, it's stopped. And what the stopped mean is it's stopped before line 5 runs.
So the program is just like paused.
Yes. That's why we can see that it's 0 and not this.
Oh, and I don't know if we really illustrated this well. When he hovers over the variable,
yes,
Visual Studio is doing all the work for us of telling us the value of that variable right now.
So there's a couple of ways to do this. We can go over here and pin it like this, and now we can put this anywhere. Another way is we have this watch 1. So watch 1 is blank. We could double click on it and move it over, or another way of doing it, we could just type this in, which is a little bit less, and you can see it says Mike's age there, and if I hit enter, we can tell it's 0 there. So we'll leave both of these up. And so now, oh no, what did I just do? I hit that button. That button always shows up.
Looks like you exited the program.
Yeah, hold on.
Easy fix.
Now, there we go. We're back here. Don't hit this little green thing. Here are the buttons we can step into, step over, and step out of. Right now, we're just going to be using step over. So now, step over will go to the next line. And as you can tell now, it's 44. We can see it's 44 over here. And we can also hover and see it's 44. And if you can tell, we still haven't run. And if I step over one more time, It's probably behind.
Yep.
There you go. Now we're at 44. We show up here. I just wanted to kind of go through that.
Yeah, because we'll be doing that a lot. Anytime a program doesn't work, one of the first tricks we go to is putting a breakpoint in it, and stopping, and then looking to see what all the variables are and make sure that it's doing what we think it's doing.
And a lot of beginner programmers don't use that, and they should. I don't know why. They just kind of go through it, and then you find out, oh, that's a really powerful thing, and then you start using it.
A lot of expert programmers need to use it
well,
more.
That's true. That's true. Okay, continue on, Jake. Sorry.
Okay, so the next thing we were going to do was manipulate Mike's age.
Yeah.
So the first thing I can think is we could add something to it.
Okay. How do you want to do that? I'll let you tell me.
Let's do Mike's age.
Okay.
And we'll say equals. So anytime we say equals, just like the line above, we set it equal to 44. We can also set it to an equation. So what if we set it equal to 20 plus 30? And again, we'll put a semicolon at the end.
And you'll see if I don't, that little red thing will show up there.
Yeah, anytime you see a little red squiggly, just like Word, anytime you see a red squiggly show up, that's Visual Studio telling you that something is wrong, and it's really good about identifying errors in real time as you're typing the code.
Yeah.
So like, for example, take the plus out of there. I want to see a bigger error. So if we let that sit there for just a second, it's going to put a squiggly, the little red squiggly under the 30, and when you hover over it, it tells you right there something's wrong. I thought there would be a semicolon, and you put a 30 there. There's also, at the bottom of the window, there's a thing called the errors list.
Right here.
And it's really good about telling you all the errors that are in your program right now. At any given time, I try to keep that at 0.
Yep.
Don't let it get too far ahead of you and then have to come back and correct it.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and put that plus back in there.
Okay.
We went down another rabbit hole.
And it's 0 errors, yep.
And now we can run. You want to run it or you want to step through it?
Let's run it. I'm going to go ahead and run it, and I have aged gracefully. There you go.
All right.
We are now at 50.
So we set the variable to 44 on line 5 there, but then immediately on line 7 we erased that value. We overrode it with the 20 plus 30, which gave us 50, of course. A variable can only hold one value at a time. Since this value is an int, it's limited to just a single number.
So it just trashed 44 and put 50 in there.
Right. You dumped out someone's glass and put your stuff in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now let's try something else. Let's make a new variable.
Okay.
On the next line.
Here?
Yeah. All right. One more. All right. Let's say int, and we're going to be fancy here, and let's say Jake's age, just to keep the theme going.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and set it equal to 43. And before we go any further, one thing I did there was we put 2 commands together into one line. We declared a new variable called Jake's age, and we said it was an integer, and then we set it equal to 43
right off the bat.
All in one line.
Yeah.
Which is very common. You see that a lot. So to basically up at the top, what we did on line 3 and 4, we put together into a single line on line 7.
And you'll see it done a lot more like this than like this.
Right.
This green underscore, this is basically telling you something else. It's not necessarily an error. It is, if you look at the bottom, it is a warning. But it's just saying this is never being used. So you set it to 43, but nowhere in our program we're using that at all. I just wanted to let you know about that green because that does come up and is kind of helpful.
So just for example here, let's replace 43 with Mike's age.
Okay.
So in this case, we're setting my age equal to Mike's age, which at this point in the program, because the 20 plus 30 line has already ran, will be 50. So we're setting one variable equal to another variable. And we could even, let's go one step further here before we step through this. let's set Jake's age equal to Mike's age times 2.
Okay. Like that?
Yep, done with the asterisk. So you want to step through it?
Yep. Okay, this is running here, but I'm going to put this aside. We are, Mike's age is 44, and when I do F10, or the button at the top, Mike's age is now 44, and now if I step again, now Mike's age is 50. We're actually going, I'm going to pin this as well. So we're going to move this right here. Jake's age is...
I'm not doing well.
0. And then if we go right here, see it doubled, and then, but Mike's age is still 50, and so
50
still has not, because this line has not run, and then when you hit play, boom, 50.
Now, why don't we just take line 9,
okay,
duplicate it,
yep,
and we'll put in my age as well.
There's that.
Copy, paste.
Yep.
And now we have 2 console write lines, so we're going to get both ages put onto the screen.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And if we see, this line did 50. And this line did 100. Jake's age is 100.
Now, let's do this. To make this app a little more usable, user-friendly.
Yeah, because right now it's just 50 and 100 does not tell
us
anything.
Well, what I was going to say is before line 9,
okay,
why don't we do another console.write line, and let's put in a string that actually explains what we're doing here.
This is a little hint Jake taught me not too long ago. If you hit this, it'll do the whole line. I can do copy and then paste.
Yep. So we're going to replace that first Mike's age with a string, which we haven't talked about yet. Mike, you want to explain strings?
Strings are another kind of variable that is words, I guess is what you would say. So could be anything. It's just words, I guess.
Words, text.
Text.
Yeah. We don't even think to use the word text anymore. We just say strings, but that's...
Yes. So if like, I would put, so you want me to put like Mike's age, right?
Yeah, but I want, yep.
So you wouldn't do it like this. Well, it will not.
It doesn't even want to let you do it wrong.
It doesn't want you to do this because it's thinking those are variables. So any kind of time we do a string, we always put quotation marks around it.
And it's got to be the double quotes.
Yes, it's double quotes. So there's Mike's age.
You'll put a semicolon?
And I'm going to put a semicolon right in there just for readability. And then we'll put this here, and this will be Jake's age. Whoops. There we go, like that.
There we go. Let's just run it again just to get a visual on that.
Now, so there's Mike's age 50, Jake's age 100.
Now it's at least readable.
Yep. And write line will always, at the end, do a carriage return.
Meaning that it'll go to the next line.
So if you wanted to, you could do this.
Oh, fancy.
And what that should do is, I'm going to stop this and restart it. What that'll do is do exactly this. So we're writing this and we're kind of appending onto the line, and the right line will, do a carriage
because return. the right doesn't do a carriage return, so then the next command just keeps right on going.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Is that enough for this video, or do you want to keep going?
Oh, let's keep going.
Okay, well, let's talk about the other basic data types. So we've talked about int. We've talked about string, though we haven't declared one. You want to declare a string?
Yes. So we know what ints are. So the next one is a string. And let's call this Mike's label.
Sure.
And now we would set that. We're going to set it to this right here.
Copy, paste.
Yep. So now this is Mike's label. And what we could do is change this here. And we'll do the same thing for Jake's label. And now you would say, well, this is a lot more code. but you might want to change this, and this might be used in 50 different spots. And now, even though Jake's label is used 50 different parts in our code, we can just change it once. So here's how you would do a string. And do we want to do anything more strings, or just keep going with the other
just
types?
Covering the real basics here. So strings, we talked about ints. We haven't talked about decimals.
Decimals. We're going to talk about, we'll do this, Mike's bank account.
Oh, you're giving out lots of personal information today.
And we're going to say, before you would say it 0, but that would not be what it really is. It is 50 cents. And you want to explain why?
Yes. So by default, when we specify a number, even though we're setting it equal to a decimal, it wants to know what kind of number it is. And decimals, we do that by putting a little character after the number. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put an M here. Decimals, I don't know why it isn't a D, but I guess decimals are used so frequently with money. That's the main thing we use them for. That M somehow got set as the character. It dates back like 30 years. So
that's what we would set as that.
And you can go ahead and put another 0 there to make it a little more readable.
Yeah, there you go. And so my bank account has 50 cents in it. So that would be a decimal, where an int does not have that decimal part on it.
Yep.
This is another one, bool, which is a boolean, and we could say...
Which is a really fancy word, but a boolean is just on, off, true, false, 1, 0. It's got to be a this or that type of variable.
I have no idea why I'm doing that. Oh, no, not false. I am alive. So that is either true or false as a Boolean. So,
and we use Booleans a lot. You wouldn't expect it, but
yes.
They are probably the most prolific variable other than strings.
Show this up on a screen, true or false, or is he a customer, or is he active? There's so many different ways to use bool. And then there's a bunch of these, but these are just the main ones. The last one is date time. And how do you explain this?
A date time stores, a date and a time. Mm-hmm. So, January 28th, 2022 at 6:38 p.m.
Yep. So here's a little secret.
In 5 seconds.
We can literally, say I wanted to stop here, we can put a semicolon anywhere, and that will actually allow us to put a breakpoint. So now if I do this, run this program, and we hit here, we can actually see...
January 1st, year 1.
And this is just a default time. Now,
just like the integer defaulted to 0.
Right. So now we would do dt equals... I don't know if you want to go any further into this, or
the only one that I would show them is there's a built-in function called datetime.now.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. That's exactly what I was going to say.
That we use a lot.
Datetime now. I'm going to redo this. So now we've got this date time, and now we put in exactly now. And if you can see, this is we are really close to Christmas. 4:46 in the afternoon.
Cool.
Yeah. And there we go. I'm going to push play. What else do we have? I think this covers the basic data types. Now, there are more data types out there we'll cover later, but this is... I remember when I was first getting this, you get overwhelmed with this and that and how big and how little. Do we want to get into nullables?
No.
Okay. Well, then let's do that on the... and the last thing, do we want to do concat?
Sure, we can do that. So just like we did addition and subtraction to Mike's age, we can do... Those are operators. We can do operators on other variable types too. Obviously, adding a decimal is hardly any different than adding an integer. strings are a little more interesting. They're so interesting that we've actually made a word for it. We call it concatenation when we add strings together. So if you ever hear that word concatenation, it's just adding strings together. So if I take two strings and I add them together, I get a new string that is the combination of the two.
So let's change this. Let's take this out. And now I would go like this, correct?
Yep.
Now, what's good and bad? Do we want to go in what's good and bad on doing it like this?
For right now, that's a perfectly fine way of doing it.
So now what we're doing is I have age, and when I hit play, see, I see Mike's age 50, Jake's age 100, and now if I say, okay, well, you know what I want? I don't know, 3 semicolons, and when I run this, as you can tell, it does it for both.
Because that string gets added to both of those.
To both of these.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it, and this is the correct way of doing it, because you want to change, the more places you find where you can change one spot that affects multiples, you don't want to have to go in and be like, oh, well, now we want 3 semicolons. You don't want to have to add those to a billion different places. This is the idea of programming, I guess.
Set a variable once, use it as many times as you want.
Exactly. But I think that's good for the beginning part of variables.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching that video from F12 Programming. Please remember to like and subscribe. That does so much for us in the ratings. You have no idea. Also, don't forget to comment below. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck coding.